Stephen Willis thinks Austin Simmons can be the number one overall pick of the NFL draft. Let's talk about it right now.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters and all you Ole Miss Rebels fans as well. It's time for another crossover edition here on the Locked On Network. On today's program, we're going to talk Lane Kiffin, our early SEC takes, and all the new Ole Miss Rebels on the Missouri roster, and of course, the game as well. Really quickly, I do want to remind you today's episode is brought to you by Odoo. Great organizations win because operations matter, and that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That is odoo.com/lockedon. And Stephen Willis, one of the biggest fans I know of Austin Simmons. Why are you so high on his potential to be possibly even a number one overall type of pick if everything goes well?
Listen, last year, I just think that he had bad luck. And then when the injury happened, Trinidad Chambliss became Lou Gehrig, essentially, and Wally Pipp lost his spot. And that wasn't, in my opinion, an indictment on Austin Simmons. Austin Simmons, 6'5", just a powerful arm. He has all the tools you could ever want. He's also one of the most mature kids you will ever meet. He's going to do things the right way. He's going to do it with class. And he just ran into a little bit of bad luck last year at Ole Miss. And that wasn't his fault. But in this situation, I think Mizzou and Ole Miss are in the correct positions with the way that it all worked out. But I think that Austin Simmons and Cayden Lee, when they come back to Oxford, I think Ole Miss fans should give them a standing ovation because they were nothing but great teammates. They were great people and beloved at this school. I appreciate it when people do it the right way, which they did, because we did have a couple examples last year where they did it the wrong way.
Well, I will say, Austin, just on your idea that, hey, he should get a standing ovation, a warm reception down in Oxford. I think there's a really good chance for that based on just the direct messages and the mentions on social media that I got from Ole Miss fans. I mean, I couldn't really believe it, to be honest with you. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, just dozens and dozens of them, and it wasn't even solicited. It was just all a bunch of individuals who came to me directly and said, boy, you guys got a good one in Austin Simmons.
Yeah, there were so many opportunities during the Ole Miss's run a year ago, and Trinidad coming seemingly out of nowhere to be the guy, for him to be disgruntled and not be the top shelf teammate that he was. And for somebody to do that, he was raised right. I mean, props to Mr. Simmons and all those. You can tell about that. But then whenever it came time for the change, when it was going to happen, when it became, I guess, kind of obvious that Trinidad Chambliss was going to be back at Ole Miss, he went to Missouri. He didn't hide anything. Everybody assumed he was going to be gone whenever Trinidad came back. But I still get messages from Mr. Simmons just as a heads up of what's going on and all of that. And I'm just a fan of that family. I'm a fan of Cayden Lee. I'm a fan of Chris Graves. Really, all the guys that ended up at Missouri, I have nothing but good things to say about them. And that's not always the case, like I say.
So since you brought up Cayden Lee and Chris Graves Jr., let's start with Cayden Lee, the slot receiver. To me, just seems like an easy plug and play for Missouri, kind of similar to Kevin Coleman last year in that we know that what he's going to do in the SEC. He's pretty much proven it before, and even better, well, he's coming with one of his best friends in Austin Simmons. So why is Cayden Lee, just from your perspective, such a beloved former Rebel at this point?
Well, he's always positive. He will put his body in harm's way and try to make big catches and all that, and he has some of the best sets of hands that you will ever see. And whenever you need a clutch first down, if the ball's on target, it's going to be caught. You don't have to worry about Cayden Lee dropping the ball. And then when you assume and see the enthusiasm that he's going to have, yes, Austin and Cayden Lee are definitely going to be the highlights of the players that came up from Oxford.
Now, how about Chris Graves Jr., Missouri's? Well, we gave Austin Simmons QB1 already in the spring. We gave Chris Graves cornerback 1 already. What can you tell me about his game?
Chris Graves got picked on at times a year ago in the secondary. I personally, if I was asked, I think he would be a slot corner, make him a corner 3 and put him there. I don't know if I would make him a field and give him a lot of space because Miami picked on him in that semifinal game, and also on the outside. The secondary for Ole Miss a year ago was not very good. I think Chris Graves can do a job, but don't expect elite production from Chris. Good guy. He's going to be an excellent teammate. He's going to not be negative in any way, but don't expect a lockdown Chris Graves Jr. Island to appear in Columbia.
Okay, fair enough. That's fair enough for sure. One more thing on Austin Simmons. On my program, I've been telling people just based on the little I've seen of Austin, really the little I guess all of us have seen of him, but you know him better than I do, that's for sure. Seen more of him up close and personal. The one thing I just want to see, again, it's accuracy for me, especially down the field. Again, not a criticism, just a question. What have you seen on his accuracy, if anything?
The one concern that people should have about Austin is the inability to see the backside cover guy in the zone. He tends to lock in. A man coverage, he's going to be very good, but in a zone, he'll see a guy breaking open in the middle of the field. Looks like he's there, but he's completely discounting the other side safety. That was a problem. We threw a couple interceptions a year ago with that, but I don't think that's anything that would be a problem. And I think the offense might be a little bit different as well, especially coming in with some air raid tendencies. Didn't that get brought in as an analyst? Lincoln Riley's brother, Garrett Riley.
Yeah, that's correct. You nailed it.
Yeah, I think you're going to see an influence of the screen game coming back into Missouri football, and I think Austin would do that pretty well. But whenever he's consistently asked to pump the ball downfield, I do think he has a blind spot, or at least he did have a blind spot.
Yeah,
that
sure.
Could have been fit. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like one of those things that he could potentially fix for sure. As studious of a type of guy as he is, I think he definitely can fix that. But that's a good note there, Stephen. One thing I think Missouri fans, well, obviously when it comes to Ahmad Hardy right now, we're most concerned with his health. We also have been, I think a lot of Missouri fans have wondered, gosh, what happened with Kewan Lacy there, that type of deal. Who do you like better? Who's the better player? Is it Hardy or is it Lacy?
I like Kewan Lacy. John David Baker called him the human eraser. You don't even have to block it up. He is going to make the first person miss. And if you get a hand on him, he's going to break that tackle. And he's somebody that size-wise and stature-wise, you don't think that this could be a thing. But all of a sudden, he just gets you. And by the end of the last year, like, he went for 225 yards against Florida, had nearly 300 yards in the playoff run, and that was with them not playing the second and third quarter because of a hamstring issue against Miami. I really like Kewan Lacy. He reminds me, and this might be sacrilegious to Arkansas fans, he reminds me of Darren McFadden. And I want to see a year 2 version of that skill set in Ole Miss's offense, especially lining up to a true Heisman Trophy candidate whenever you can affect the defense just by having those two players in the backfield. I want to see what that looks like. And listen, you can't go 8 in the box to try and stop Kewan because Trinidad will rip you to shreds. You can't do drop back and play umbrella coverage because Kewan will rip you to shreds.
Right.
The position's there for Ole Miss to have one of the top offenses in college football, and it's largely because of what Kewan Lacy does to me.
Yeah, I think that's a good take. To me, my argument for Hardy is pretty simple, and you kind of made it. I think last year, boy, Ahmad Hardy saw a lot more 8-man boxes, and yet, despite all of that, had the most broken tackles, had the higher yards after contact, all that good stuff. But the point is, you can't really go wrong either way. If Missouri had held on to Lacy, the reality is they would have never gotten Hardy. That is for certain. But of course, Missouri is heading down to Ole Miss. We're heading down to Oxford this season, so we need to talk about the actual football game here in a little bit. As early as it is, I have to admit that, coming up here on the program in just a minute. Yes, running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them manage to talk together. Well, that's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together all in one platform. From sales, accounting, marketing, everything works in one place. Help your team move faster, stay organized, and focused on growing the business instead of managing software. The best organizations know that success isn't just about talent. It's about having everyone work together toward the same goal. And I think that's true in sports just like it is in business. And really, not only have Eli Drinkwitz and company, the entire athletic department, been on the same wavelength for years now, I think you saw that with Ole Miss a little bit. Even after Lane Kiffin left, I thought they were correct to bring in an interim coach like Pete Golding, keep the train on the tracks. Listen, great organizations win because operations matter, and that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. All right, if you want to check out Locked On Mizzou or Locked On Ole Miss ad-free every single day, we got to check out the Everydayer Club. You can start your 7-day free trial right now and get closer to your team without the interruptions. Click the link in the show notes or go to lockedonmizzou.supercast.com or lockedonolemmiss.supercast.com to claim your free trial. Okay, first of all, Stephen, I think it's kind of interesting that the projections are, just the little ones I've seen, are maybe a little bit more down on Ole Miss than I would have thought, maybe in like the 15 range. Than I thought they were going to be a surefire top 10 team, even without Lane, most importantly, again, with Kewan coming back, with Trinidad coming back. How are you feeling about this game, though? What do you think Missouri's chances are of pulling an upset possibly in Oxford?
Hey, for whatever reason, take away the weird game against Kentucky in 2024. Ole Miss hadn't lost a home game in like 4 years besides that one. So it's going to be difficult. But this is a weird year because there's that early game against LSU that everybody's going to be thinking about. You go down to the Swamp and you have Texas, you have Georgia, and all of these games. And then Missouri, who every single year, you know how high I've been on the Missouri Tigers over the last couple of years. They've had really good teams, and they just get forgotten about. They're just kind of like an also-ran, like Vanderbilt coming into your stadium or something like that. And that concerns me. I like where Ole Miss sits. I think Ole Miss will be better offensively than they were a year ago. I think Missouri might not be as good as they were a year ago defensively.
That's the concern, I think, for Missouri, is the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and like Jonte Cook, I think, is about to have an All-American type year at Ole Miss as a slot receiver. The former 5-star guy that went to Texas, he couldn't quite get right. But I'm going to tell you, when I was at the Under Armour All-American game, there's been exactly 2 times that I've walked out of practice with my jaw just dropped. One was Zach Branch, and he's gone from Georgia now. The other was Jonte Cook. And in this offense, which is very matchup based, they're going to get the ball in his hands on jet sweeps. They're going to try and match him up on linebackers and things like that. And it's going to be problematically set up whenever you have a quarterback like Trinidad and a running back like Kewan. It's kind of a pick your poison type situation. So I do think Ole Miss is in a position to win that game, but in the SEC, like with what I said and everybody focusing on the other stuff, you have a chance that you're going to have a really, really good football team sneaking up on you on Oxford, and they shouldn't be. It's just the way everything's working out weirdly this year.
Yeah, it just seems to me, I think it's, if the Missouri offense is maybe as good as we're hoping, then it's going to be a good ball game. I just wonder, it just seems so hard to project the Missouri defense, and yet most of the projections are saying, hey, the Tigers will be pretty good on defense again, despite having to replace basically 9 or 10 regulars on your one deep there at the very least, much less the 2 deep. So Missouri put a lot of capital into the secondary up front. They're kind of rolling with guys who are returners, guys who are second stringers last year. Had one guy, Zion Young, off to the NFL, one guy, Damon Wilson. Well, he transferred once again after going Georgia to Missouri. Now he's at Miami. So it's going to be really interesting. The Tigers are really betting on their development, their coaching staff. And I got to say, so far, obviously 2023 was the huge year for Missouri. But since Blake Baker left as the defensive coordinator, went to LSU, hey, Corey Batoon's done just fine. In fact, I think 2025 may have been Missouri's best defense yet. Do you think he doesn't get enough credit, perhaps?
Yeah, Corey Batoon. He was here with Hugh Freeze in Oxford. I think it will be interesting. Now, it will be really fun as like Pete Golding got to pick the amount of money that was spent on defensive players. So it isn't like a 5'9", 175-pound defensive back is out there just because he can run, because you signed 8 wide receivers, that are at the top of the level. I do think the defense is going to be a little bit better for Ole Miss. But the important thing in this game that I think you need to know is if what I talked about a little bit earlier about Austin Simmons, the problems, the blind spots, that type of stuff that they have in his game, don't think that Joe Judge isn't going to relay that to whoever's coaching the defense, and they're going to try and bait him to throw the ball to the other team. And that's probably going to be the game plan. So it's going to be imperative that Austin kind of fixes those blind spots before he gets down to Oxford, because they know exactly what he struggles with.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It absolutely is, especially with, again, Golden being the defensive side of the ball, coming back as the head coach, all that stuff. He saw it up close and personal. There's no doubt about that. And since we're speaking of, we're making the current coach. How about the old coach, Lane Kiffin? How do you see Lane doing at LSU this season and beyond, quite honestly?
Listen, this is going to be a hot take, and it's it's probably going to upset some LSU fans in my comments that live there every day. But he's a 500 coach in his first year. Traditionally, that's where he is. He went 500 at Tennessee in 2009. He went 500 at Ole Miss in 2020. LSU has a very tough schedule. It would not surprise me. Shouldn't surprise anybody if LSU is 1-3 in the month of September. It takes a little bit of time to get this offense rolling. Once you get all of the stuff put together, it can roll. But LSU fans that are expecting the year 6 version of the offense that Ole Miss was running in year 1, they could be into a little bit of a surprise, because he does run complicated stuff, and there's a lot of changing in his game plan to where it can be problematic. His first year at Ole Miss, Matt Corral threw 6 interceptions at Arkansas, stuff like that. There can be some weird stuff that can be hard to be dealt with, but he's preaching patience to everybody right now, not to compare to Ole Miss in year 1. This is about down the road, but can you really do that when you have a $50 million roster? Right. Can you really say, hey, this year doesn't necessarily count? So I am curious about that. But yeah, Ole Miss has the more talented roster than LSU, as they should. But everybody just has the magic pixie dust on the last couple of seasons at Ole Miss and just kind of transferred that over to LSU. And it's going to take more time than that.
Well, when people are declaring you, I don't know, maybe it's even self-declared. I don't know. Certainly he's embraced the Portal King moniker. So that in and of itself means your fans are going to have a little bit less patience probably. LSU's got really high expectations for sure. But hey, I love these SEC hot takes. I got a couple of my own coming up here on the program in just a bit. And also, I may just make my way down to Oxford this year. I'll see if Steven has any tips. If we got time, we may even talk some basketball too, coming up here in just a second. All right, so Steven thinks that LSU is going to have a relatively tough year under Lane Kiffin. Maybe they go 5-4 in the SEC, 4-5. I think the way the SEC is these days, you can't be really surprised by anything. And I guess that's the second half of my hot takes here. My first half, I just don't think the Florida Gators are going to be very good in their first year under John Sumrall. Maybe it's going to work out in the long term. I just don't see it this year. I don't see it at the quarterback position. I think that defense is talented, but offense, I think they're going to struggle this year. That's just my early take right now on the Gators.
I kind of agree on that. I think Florida can be very good, but everything is so dependent on the quarterback situation. If it's not 100, Florida's going to struggle offensively, but they have Jaden Baugh, who
and a brutal schedule once again, of course.
Yeah. Mod Hardy, Kewan Lacy, we talked about that, but the other factor is Jaden Baugh, and they run the ball. They're going to be physical with it, and I just don't know if the crazy in John Sumrall is enough to get you where you need to be. Are they going to be better than they were under Billy Napier? Yeah, probably, honestly. But I do not think they're more than a 7 or 8 win football team in year one.
And then my other take, I think people are too down on Vanderbilt this year. I think the conventional wisdom is, well, Diego Pavia's gone. There you go. I think Clark Lee is the secret sauce here. It's not so much Diego Pavia, who is a good player. I think eventually became a little bit of an overrated player at a certain point. Again, I'm not saying he's good. Look at who they've brought in at quarterback, by the way. I know he's young. I just think that Vanderbilt, not that they're, a sleeper to win the league or anything, I think they're going to be a similar quality to what they were last season. Am I going too far with that, Steven?
Probably, because we do have to remember what a true freshman looks like the first 6 weeks of the season. That can be problematic in the league. Now, I will say this. One of my favorite jokes that I've been saying is Diego Pavia was Mario before the mushroom and Jared Curtis is Mario after the mushroom. They are going to be very good. There is a belief Clark Lee is very good. I like Jerry Kill as the analyst coach of the offense, and he doing different stuff is pretty impressive. I like Vandy. I don't think they're 10-2. I think they're probably 7-5, 8-4.
Sure. When I said similar quality, I didn't really mean the record per se. I just mean I think they're still going to be a tough out. And like you say, Jared Curtis, assuming he's your starter, which probably a safe assumption, there's going to be some growing pains. There's no doubt about it. But I just think especially, they're going to upset some people. I just think especially, hey, year 2, Clark Lee's going to keep this thing on the tracks. That's just my feeling on Vanderbilt.
I just want them to 50 burger Tennessee again.
Oh my God. Would that not make all of the rest of us in the conference happy? I think that it would. I'd absolutely think that it would. But Steven, I know you're not necessarily in Oxford, not even close, in fact, but I assume you've been there before. If I'm going down to Oxford, do you have any do's, any do nots when it comes to the Grove or any of that kind of stuff?
Unless you know somebody in the Grove, it's always good to walk through once.
Sure.
That's usually what I do. Pass through and see. It's like, wow, this is fantastic. But honestly, if we're being real about it, there's just too many people. I do think that there are a couple of restaurants. Like I love Phillips Grocery. That's kind of an off the beaten path thing. Eating there, a couple of restaurants on the square like Ajax Diner, that's a standby. And whenever you take that, the walking through the Grove and all the pageantry of going into the stadium, I think you'll have a good time, because if you went here, let's see, when was the last one? 2012, the last time Missouri came to?
Yeah,
2013.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They have changed that place so much in 13 years to where the atmosphere is 100 times better than what it was. And they do a pretty good job of what's going on. They make a nice little experience for everybody in there. But yeah, I would walk through the Grove and things like that, but I wouldn't plan on camping out near it. If you want to tailgate over closer to the stadium, that would probably be better, because the Grove and all that's just so crowded.
Gotcha. Well, those are great tips. Appreciate it, sir. And you know what? I got to hit you up with some basketball as well. And for you Ole Miss fans out there, I'll just tell you, what to expect from Missouri. It seems like usually Ole Miss and Missouri play twice a season in hoops more often than not. We'll see if that is
lifelong
the case
rivals.
again. Oh yeah, huge, absolutely. Just the stories, the books that will be written about Ole Miss versus Missouri basketball. But no, really, for you Rebels fans out there, just quickly, I'll say, hey, Darius Acuff, as we record here, was just drafted by the Sacramento Kings. I think the former Razorback, a pretty good comparison for Jason Crow Jr., who's coming in as a freshman this season, just in terms of impact of the guard spot, and just a bunch of real interesting athletic transfers as well. I think the Tigers should be a top 25 caliber team, and the upside's even quite a bit higher. Steven, what did you think about, this past offseason for Ole Miss basketball, and where are you with just the Chris Beard era in general?
I think that last year, for whatever reason, it just didn't work out. And maybe it was the fact that they were so reliant on international players and they didn't quite mesh or click or anything like that until it was too late. By the end of the season, they were pretty good, but the damage was done at that point. This year is going to be interesting, and I guess I can call it cautious optimism, because everybody's in on Chris Beard because he's just a fantastic basketball coach. I mean, he knows what he's doing. And you just don't think that he would get it wrong for a second time, because I do think they got it wrong a little bit last year, or at least the assumption was that it was going to be a little bit easier. This year, they're going to go in the international game like they did a year ago. They're going to try and find steep physical players. They're going to get a little smaller, a little rebound heavy, because they've struggled rebounding the basketball. So I'm going to say that cautious optimism from me. I do think Ole Miss will be back in the dance next season, but I don't know. I'm not anywhere near being able to project against certain teams and matchups and things like that.
Sure. Yeah, same here. That's why I was interested to just hear what your perspective was on Ole Miss basketball, because I really don't have much of one right now. It takes a while to get your feet wet with basketball these days. So many changes and all that good stuff. I will say, if it doesn't go great for Chris Beard this year, it'll be interesting if they miss the tournament a couple years in a row for a guy who's widely considered one of the best coaches in the country. Listen, I don't think they'd get rid of him. Even if they did, he wouldn't be unemployed for very long. So I just think it is a little bit of an interesting season for this program, kind of a fulcrum season maybe for Ole Miss basketball. But hey, Steven, it's been a lot of fun, man. Thank you for joining me here on the program as per usual. And once again, get your daily Locked On Mizzou fix and your Locked On Ole Miss fix completely ad-free. Just join the Everydayer Club. Check out the link in the show notes. And for Steven Willis, I'm John Miller. Thanks for listening to this crossover.